The thought of the 10 depends on all the parts of the 10?
No. In the 10 you can have Rabbi Yossi, Ben Kisma and his students. And each one, according to his own measure of annulment, he annuls himself much towards them. They are great to him, and then he receives much from them. And it's according to his measure of annulment, not according to them, but according to his own measure of annulment. So I don't take into account who the 10, what the 10 is like, if they're beginners, if they're bright, veteran students. I don't take that into account. I take into account only the extent to which I can annul myself towards them. And then perhaps it's better for me to be with beginners, actually. But we don't do that kind of calculus either, because the Creator keeps changing things around, me in respect to them, them in respect to me. So ultimately, it's enough that I have a 10, I have where to annul myself, and by that, I prepare the vessel for the attainment of the thought of creation.
But the direction is the same direction.
It's always the same direction. Each one helps each other, they all help each other, and I need to ask them. I pay them however I possibly can, and it's work. Go on, if so. Yes, Dudi.
Besides none else beside him, there is I that annuls himself. When do they both join into one?
There is no none else besides him if no one annuls himself. If I don't annul myself, then who can say that there's none else besides him?
So there will always be none else besides him and myself.
Yes.
So when do these things come together?
When you annul yourself completely, then in your annulment, in your complete annulment, you determine that there is none else besides him. Because by that you purify your vessel, so that there's none else besides him fills you up completely, and you determine that there's none else besides him within your vessel. The aviyut, the coarseness, is never purified. Rather, the upper light fills the vessel according to the measure of adhesion between the will to receive and the light. And that's why it's not a hindrance that you exist. It's specifically because you exist to your fullest measure. You can determine that there's none else besides him because it fills you up. You have a great big will to receive with all of the cruelest discernments, and above them you have the restriction and the masach, and the upper light fills you with chasadim, and then you are ready and willing to actualize it in order to bestow, meaning with the light of Chokhmah, and then you determine that there is none else besides him. When you say Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, you say Shema Yisrael, meaning hear, O Israel. That's the entire Kli, which is aimed with all of its corrections. It's aimed to be like the upper light.
And I, who determined that there's none else besides him, does not annul at a certain point?
It's annulled. It annuls, but it's not annulled. Anyone who's greater than his friend has a greater inclination still. So it all happens with the restriction, masach, and the reflected light. And the greater the paltzuf, it's greater in its coarseness and its restriction and its masach. And then in terms of its reflected light and the measure of cruelty that's blazing within it, and the measure of, how to put it, his bestowal, which is also blazing. These are two conflicting forces which are very, how to put it, very juicy.